Another reading of Failsafe, The Kennedy Curse, fused with science fiction fantasy, written by me, Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, the one and the only. Kuan Yin moved closer to Christopher, asking, "Is it more compassionate to kill through thousands of stabbings, or is it more humane to end things with one swift move?" The Egyptian god Ra appeared next to Caradwin, predominantly displaying the illumination, while asking, "As a homosexual, what would you do in my position to you?" Remaining in the same position while Christopher tried not to visibly show the trembling within his core, and unable to comprehend the turn of events, when he said with a snarky tone of voice, "I would ask which party you came from with that costume, but before inquiring how you shine so brightly." Without hesitation, he added, "Next, I would ask you which gym you work out in, and finalize asking, what do you mean, what would I do in your position, Caradwin?" Raising one wrinkled arm towards Christopher's face, while inching closer, Caradwin attempted to reach to touch his cheek, whispering softly, "You failed," using her blackened nails to cause a sporadic spark to jolt, igniting an instantaneous fire the second they met his skin, discharging the flames to burn all of the hair on and within Christopher's head and face, to catch fire among all other large and minute hairs, down to the tips of his toes. All onlookers gasped in terror, listening to the popping cells in the flesh while smelling the burning, as pieces of Christopher randomly sprayed. Many had bits of his blood sprayed onto their bodies, while others tasted whatever landed in their mouths, spitting in the disgusting flavor out of their mouths. The remainder received the expectorant mixture. He fell to the ground after the lengthy burn, while the masses cried in pain and terrorized fear. After all observed as he fell to the ground, Christopher thought along with his last breath, "A flamer going out and sparkled flames and ember is better than anything I could have ever thought for my final exit from this realm." Maggie started running towards Caradwin while demanding answers to the responses for Caradwin's response to their demise, noticing her slowly putting one hand up as Maggie asked, "Is it more compassionate for me to kill you through thousands of stabbings, or is it more humane to end your life with one swift move?" Stopping Maggie, she took herself for a moment in her own tracks, tilting her head to one side, asking, "Do you understand what I'm talking about, ma'am?" Repeating the question several times before Caradwin responded with annoyance dripping from each syllable every time the need arose, Maggie asked again to Caradwin, "Is it more compassionate for me to kill you through thousands of stabbings, or is it more humane to end your life, Carradwin, with one swift move. Maggie demanded understanding while being ignored. Why and what did your questioning to the death of my guys have to do with anything? Lakshmi moved closer to Maggie, asking, "You have seen the lessons within the ancient relics from the olden days? While living amongst humanity and experiencing their existence." Sophia gently added, "Maggie, you were chosen because of the patient strength necessary for a full understanding prior to making a move, while containing the energy for when the immediate action is necessary." Lucifer crossed his arms while stomping towards Maggie, saying, "The spectrum of events were not only experimental with those cherubim ones and your changeling being, but for the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones of humanity as an entire whole." Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy gradually made her way through the group to stand before Maggie with a smile, asking, "You do know your lineage brought everyone here to this point in time. Your understanding of the past alongside of the experiences within this existence. We need you to make the final decision. You know this, correct?" Aristotle stated, "The ones off in the universe have watched for the signs from every existence, and after all the prior planetary lives, they wanted and needed to know whether or not the project is worthwhile." Maggie saw the various situations, relics, and events from the beginning to this crucial moment to see Mr. Inry standing next to her, telepathically explaining all thought humanity would learn the necessary steps for the next evolutionary step with the sacrifice as he fell to his knees, tears pouring down his face as he looked upward towards the remaining innocents, the only one of the galaxy. Mr. Inry wept a heartfelt apology to her. Maggie listened to the shortcomings all around while everyone else continued experiencing the suffering cherubim deserved. The flashes of images flowed between the two when the moment of truth entered her mind. Rising to his feet, Mr. Inry whispered, "It has always been up to you, Maggie, to find the balance, my Magdalene." Lowering his forehead to lightly touch hers while he whispered, "I am sorry for what they do not understand, and I wish I could have spared you." Moving away from him, Maggie calmly stated, "The word humanity for cherubim is an oxymoron for mankind." Mr. Inry repeated the question to Maggie, or Magdalene. "Is it more compassionate to kill through thousands of stabbings, or is it more humane to end things with one swift move?" Turning her head to view the masses, the innocence faded briefly while the darkness blended with the illumination to create a yin-yang emanating from Maggie. Scanning the audience for a similar soul with the ability to match one, she shrugged her shoulders with a sigh. Moving closer to the group of deified aliens, Maggie took her time with each footstep, shuffling her feet while motioning with her hands for everyone to gather closer to her for the announcement, as Maggie kept her arms open for the huddle, fearful of the choice she was going to make for the next steps for all of humankind, for the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones, and then the cherubim. She chuckled to herself. The audience continued trembling while the group awaited impatiently for the response. Several minutes of silence, feeling similar to decades, passed before she sighed, chuckling, stating, "Again, the word mankind is just an oxymoron as humanity in reference to the cherubim ones." The group interrupted Maggie's train of thought, asking in unison, "Is it more compassionate to kill through thousands of stabbings, or is it more humane to end things with one swift move?" Stroking her chin, Maggie replied, stating the facts. "This era is not humanity's first attempt for a successful evolvement past the necessary experiences and lessons to graduate to the next level." She added, "Multiple planets beyond Mercury and Venus have been destroyed because of cherubim's inability to learn from their mistakes. Thus, an infinite number of souls have needlessly suffered more than those who are watching in the compassionate, honorable, and righteous realms." Throughout each statement made by Magdalene, while she thought out loud, her appearance transformed before all, just as Mr. Inri and his physical representation changed. During each syllable spoken, a button or a zipper would unclasp the material covering each person, falling to the floor. Upon fully being disrobed by the energies as the thoughts were spoken audibly, both Magdalene and Mr. Inri's hair increased in length and darkened in color. Flowing in the breezes surrounding the two, several cloths of fine linen wrapped around their bodies separately, fitting snugly around Magdalene's form. A beard rapidly grew into the face as a veil gently covered her, only to reveal her pronounced eyes, while small drops of blood left the corner of the palms and feet. The burdened souls of the globe whimpered and explained their plights when she abruptly put up one hand to stop everyone from speaking any further to comment. "Though Abraham may have debated with Yahweh about the possible innocence at the time, I cannot imagine the numerous attempts within the same conversation. Knowing the information from the records and the antiques, the decision is simple." She smiled sadistically, stating, "Cherubim ones of humanity do not deserve another chance to prove themselves, and instead of destroying the entire existence of the world, I suggest another option." Creating intrigue, Maggie added, "I suggest keeping the information available for every single existence, for all future beings, to show them where the cherubim ones had failed, as the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones of humanity succeeded, and the areas of failure to prevent their species from repeating the same mistakes." Without another word, the important relics floated into the air and throughout the Milky Way galaxy into the universe, using the necessary internally built energies of each relic to propel each object into the specified origins. Space and time disappeared. Flying well out past the furthest limits for the Milky Way galaxy, all important artifacts took the needed paths to find safety. The remaining tortured souls lingering on Earth were grouped together to being another round of tornadoes, utilizing the debris to wipe out many people in the general masses. Those a part of the top 1% of the top 1% were not going anywhere anytime soon. The remaining audience members filled with more fright while watching sporadic objects shooting off to disappear from sight within seconds from multiple explosions. After the final piece allowed the chemical energy to propel the antique towards the outermost limits of the galaxy, the planetary orbits changed. The lingering souls ripped apart the remaining cherubim individuals on the planet, and after their demise, some points were explained further. Shredding with the winds, pulling every single item towards the black hole, the vacuum obliterated every single unnecessary life form from existence in the cherubim ones, losing the ability to remain within the incubation portion of the experiment within the universe. The time came to cleanse all cherubim of the unworthy remaining. The few species which were worthwhile to save from the destructive forces had already left the earthly plane of existence among the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones. The sun detonated without warning to create antimatter, and shortly afterwards making a vacuum where the balls of flames once had been located, rapidly transforming from a gigantic fiery existence into a black hole where the sun once hovered. Random items began flying into the atmosphere, soaring beyond the weakening gravitational pull, while the pieces of random materials flew towards the vacuuming black hole, taking all to another dimension. All human lives were expanded within the Akashic records and places into permanent databases for all other beings in the universe to read through and find inspiration, to learn and prevent similar results from the mistakes of the cherubim, locking all beings and their paths within the videos and microfiche database for anyone to utilize the information when necessary for the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones. While the final pieces of the Milky Way galaxy swirled towards the black hole where the sun once existed, Mr. Inri looked to Magdalene, saying in a calm and gentle voice, "I told them I would return, and the instruction manuals were supposed to assist their path to what could have been greatness for everyone in the species." Magdalene looked up into his eyes with a slight smile, saying, "You kept your promise, as did I." Shaking his head among the flying debris with a grin, he said, "They should not have done so and should have known better than to allow their cherubim egos to be so bold as to edit the original manuscripts for their falsely claimed individualized power." Wrapping his arms around her as a light engulfed every pore of their beings. "You know, this could have ended this millenniums ago, had the first and second major failures and lessons throughout the existence of humanity taken hold. And if those cherubim one's egos had just released their arrogance." Snuggling her head into his chest, she sighed as the illumination transported the two off throughout the universe. "You are the one who argued mankind deserves the third chance, whereas I was perfectly content taking everyone out back in the day." Materializing within the unearthly realms of the outermost limits of the universe, Magdalene said, "I thought you were smarter than to be fooled by the lies and arrogance of the cherubim ones when I originally signed on this mission with you, passing on a more profitable adventure at the time. Jesus said, I truly thought they would have learned from all the persecution mistakes during the witch trials, but they were proof, once otherwise, of the quest and fear of power." Magdalene whispered, "They did not fear power during their quests and ventures, nor when they attained their individual maximum potential long ago." Rose said through the shadows, "Mankind of the cherubim was arrogant to believe that they were strong enough to force their evolution before all lessons were completed successfully, and as such, the time of their experiments ended. Magdalene nagged Jesus, I told you humanity should have been destroyed the second we saw their development in the galaxy with those cherubim ones. But you thought they would change for the betterment of the universe. Jesus exclaimed, Holy Spirit of the divine, have you got to be kidding me? He added without hesitation, how was I supposed to know the cherubim would amend my words and actions to achieve their false goals and narratives and remove the balance taught? Magdalene added while posing the question, in the zone which males who opened themselves to balance with the feminine energies were persecuted and harassed. Are you truly surprised the harmony throughout the human race had not come to fruition in the cherubim ones? Before Jesus could respond, she added, even with the texts and the teachings within Buddhism to coincide with the harming none outside of self-defense, the feminine energies were never fully balanced until now. Rose inquired of Jesus Christ, what do you have to say about her accusations of your relaxed attitude? Shamefully responding, the powers and abilities of the physical overtook the logical thought processes. And thus it is my diagnosis. The hormones running throughout the phallic DNA structures of cherubim caused the majority of the problems to explode and spew into the entire race. Magdalene said to Rose with a chuckle, perhaps there can be some use from those cherubim ones after all, beyond the information database. Rose, filled with confusion, and inquired, how so, Magdalene? She responded, humanity seemed to follow a few mundane patterns throughout their existences. Beyond power and the latter for the cherubim had been revenge. Jesus added, my hypothesis of this compound throughout humanity can only be utilized for the destructive purposes of the cherubim. Magdalene explained, each frozen aspect of their existence can be utilized when the time comes for the upcoming, while never allowing cherubim to survive. Jesus and Rose called others into the meeting for Magdalene to pause before she stated, there is no doubt in the anger of a woman's scorn, but hell truly hath no fury like a mother's scorn. The end. Failsafe, the Kennedy Curse Fused with Science Fiction Fantasy, written by me, Susan MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, few other nicknames that I've had over the years. You can go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. See all the stuff I've done. You can click on the pictures of the books like this one, and it'll take you to the link to be able to purchase all of my books online. Make sure to watch, listen, and share all of my YouTube channel videos for me, Reverend MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing. You get it. Thank you very much. Brightest of